Today we're going to be incorporating this nice fiber barrel that I got from one of my customers. It's roughly 25-ish gallons, I would say, in exchange for my Thine baffled blue plastic container, which has done me well. I just didn't feel like making another lid for this gargantuan thing right here. So we're going to be putting this cyclone unit onto the fiber barrel in anticipation and preparation for our dust collection improvement series of videos, which will be showing a different mounting style for the motor, possible deletion of the green ring. I'm not sure how that's all going to pan out just yet. This unit's got a 6-inch inlet here. The motor has a 5-inch inlet there. So first thing I'm going to do is, more than likely, I still have to plan this all out yet, but more than likely open up the dust collector inlet to a 6-inch with an HVAC connector that will allow me to directly couple to this instead of having to reduce it down from the 6-inch to the 5-inch. I think that would hinder some of the airflow. The piping on this end of the cyclone is 5 inches. I will be piping the shop with 5-inch, reducing to 4-inch, and then subsequently reducing to 2.5-inch for some of the other tools, my drill press and overhead dust collection for the table saw. But everything that I can utilize 5-inch piping, more than likely I'm going to do so. My jointer has a 4-inch, which does actually do a pretty good job. I don't know. Have to play around and see what is what. I do have, I have the 4-inch flex piping, and I've got some 4-inch blast gates. Thanks, Harbor Freight. Actually, they sell you 4-inch. They'd say it's 4-inch. It's actually 100 millimeters, so it's 3-inch 930. And it doesn't fit onto some of the 4-inch ports that I have. So, sucks to be me on that one. That was a bonehead move on my behalf. I should have done a little bit more research on the Harbor Freight dust collector kit, but it's my bad. So stick around, stay tuned, and let's see how this all turns out. So the first thing you want to do is get it centered up onto the lid. I took scale, got it pretty good. It's on this one here, it's about 4 3/4 of an inch all the way around to the flange. So just went around, made sure it was 4 3/4 all the way around. I'm going to go and mark all of these locations for my bolt holes, and then I'm going to trace around here. I'll pinpoint the center of the lid perfectly before I cut my hole out, but my hole is going to be done with this hole saw. I bought it a while ago. I needed it for one hole. May as well have it, may as well use it for two. Alright, so we got the center hole cut. I checked the diameter of the screws. They're about 1/4 inch. So we'll make the holes around the edge here 9/32, which is 281. Slightly larger than 1/4 inch hole, which is 250. 250 thousandths. I can use my old Continental drill press that now runs very well after a little motor tune-up. And once those holes are in, then we can bolt the cyclone unit to the top of the can. I'm probably going to have to make some kind of ring for this, or maybe mount the cyclone with silicone instead of the gasket that they supply, just because this is a cardboard lid essentially. I couldn't get the metal one. I'm going to try to see what I can swing next time I go. But for now, this should work out fine. I'm going to have the cyclone hard mounted to the lid, and then the cyclone is going to be mounted to the dust collector unit with a 6-inch flex pipe. So that way when I go to change or remove the chip barrel, I just lift up on the cyclone unit. This doesn't really see much as far as downward pressure or anything like that, so I don't see this getting damaged anytime soon. But let's get these holes drilled out and take it from there. Alright, now we're ready to put the gasket around the inside perimeter of the holes, around the little indentions here. Shows in the instruction manual again on the inside of the hole, so let's get that on there. Can't do it with one hand, so alright, so that's on there. I might trim this, I'm not sure. I'm just gonna put it on and see what I get. Again, I might do this with silicone, but we'll see how this turns out with the gasket material. I didn't want to cut it because this way I can kind of pinch it together a little bit, prevent that little seam right there from leaking. So that all went together surprisingly easy, which means that at some point there's going to be a catastrophic failure. May not be today, may not be tomorrow, maybe 10 years down the road, but if something goes together too easy, that means that there's just room for something to happen. The bolts I put in through the bottom, the nuts I put in through the top. The reason why I did that, two reasons. One, I'm just directly mounting it to the cardboard for right now, so I didn't want to put too much pressure on that per se. All the force will be applied to the nuts around the flange of this here. The other reason is if one of these nuts should come loose at some point, you could spot that. And if you're lucky, the bolt will just get stuck up in the hole and not fall into the system and then not get sucked up by something. Who knows? I guess we'll see. And there she is in all of her mounted glory. It actually went together pretty well. I'm not overly worried about this, actually. It does seem to be fairly rigid. You can almost tell where the double insulation is at. It's right there. At least I think. That's what it looks like to me anyway. I'll just fix that. I'll pull this thing apart real fast one day and, and do it. Well, we'll see how this, see if it leaks or not. Again, I might go around here with silicone instead of this rubber gasket. I'm not really overly keen on it, but it does seem to hold up pretty well. The unit itself is nice and sturdy, so let's continue on. Alright, back for a little more fun. So I got a 6-inch coupler and a 6-inch starter. Got some hose. This is going to go on here like so, and that'll give me enough spring and sprungen to be able to lift the cyclone up when I take the can out. Alright, I pulled her out of the corner. It's time to pull her apart and start building the bottom structure and the side members. So I'm going to open up the inlet to a 6-inch from the 5. Now the original flange actually mounts in from the inside. This one here mounts from the top with some double sticky tape and a couple of screw holes. This guy here is only spot welded in place. There's no seal or anything like that. So what I did was I just took this ugly old chisel, got it up underneath each of the spot welds, and it took a little bit of trial and error to get there, but got up underneath the spot welds and just popped them off, and the collar fell right out. Now I have to open up this hole to fit this guy here, which isn't very much. It's only about a 1/2 inch all the way around. I mean, 5 inch, 6 inch, duh. Got the cover off here. You can see the impeller. I did use it a little bit, so it's already got some dust on there. So it's well seasoned, like a nice cast iron skillet. Alright, so she's on. What I did was I took some sheet metal screws after I cut my hole out. A couple sheet metal screws, flipped it over, took my Dremel tool, and just nipped the ends off. And that gives me plenty of clearance. So now I'm going to put this back together, and then I can start laying out for my framework. I'm going to build a stand-up frame for this. I'm not going to mount it to the wall because I don't like the idea of drilling into my foundation. So I'm going to just modify this cart, probably get rid of that, and then just pipe it directly through the top. Cut a hole out with the sheet metal blade that I bought for my jigsaw, and then replace the bag with the 5-gallon pail. So just a quick overview on the floor, how it's going to pretty much wind up. So I got 6 inch going to 6 inch inlet. It's a 5 inch on the collector end, and that's going to get 5 inch piping around the perimeter, up and across, and then 4 inch down, more than likely, down over to that gate, and then snake around to the back of the table saw. And then I'm going to have some kind of breakout point, either here or somewhere, one for the drill press, and then one over for the bandsaw. Alright, so I got some of the frame together, trying to find the position for the motor. I have a height limitation of 7 feet in here. The way that I'm looking right now, this cart stands about 3 5/8 tall, stacked all together with the top of the motor. I'm at about 82 and a half. So that should get me where I need to be. It'll give me enough room up on the top. It'll give me some airflow in between the joists. And then I have to more than likely trim down the fittings, which isn't going to be a big deal because I mean, I've got all this space here that the hose can go on to. Really, what I'm trying to do is just trying to get it to have enough flex here to be able to lift up and get the can out from underneath once everything is all assembled. But I'll know more as I dry fit everything and get this portion mounted to the cart. Alright, it's now another day around the way. So after some deliberation and some measurements and all of that happy horseshit, I've come to the realization that I cannot use this cart because it's not long enough this way. But that's okay. I'm going to spend more time using this thing than I'm going to spend moving it around. So just going to start framing it up in the corner, pre-drill the hole locations for the motor before I wrestle with that thing. But for the most part, I want to get my structure stood up, some of the support members mounted to it. I got to cut 2 more of the long beams to put on the opposite side. Run some cross bracing across here, maybe some kind of diagonal supports. I'm not sure yet. Just doing this all on the fly. Alright, time for the next step here. I got this lid from Home Depot. It's snapped onto the top of this black bucket. I picked up a new bucket while I was there. So the plan is to cut out the center, put some weather stripping around here, drill some holes for mounting, and then mount this to a block of, or a piece of plywood that will go across here, roughly about that height. I don't know. When I get it all measured, I'll know for sure. Then the filter will sit here, and the bucket will mount underneath. And the bucket is to catch residual dust that comes out of the port. So, thinking about this, the filter is roughly 23, 24 inches tall, something like that. So, my idea now to secure this thing, like I said, I'm going to put bracing across here, slightly above where the can is going to go. I've got to account for the fact that I may actually get a 3-inch taller can, which gives me a little bit more capacity. The difference being that there's a metal lid on that can, and I don't know, it's something that I just kind of would prefer. Not that this thing isn't sturdy, but you know, if the price is right, aka free, may as well, you know, take advantage of it. As far as piping out of the unit into the filter, I'm going to use some 5-inch elbow ductwork and just position it so that it sits like so. I'm going to connect that, put this down, I'm going to connect that with a small piece of the Harbor Freight piping. I don't even know where it is, right here. It's a small piece of this 5-inch piping that came with the collector. So it'll come elbow down into the filter. I've got a takeoff on order because you can't find a fucking 5-inch takeoff anywhere. The ones that they do sell have these perforations in them, and you'd have to goop it up with silicone, and it would just look like a fucking ratty piece of shit. So, got one on order through Homeless Depot. Elbow to elbow, being a little less restrictive than Slinky Dink. Small piece of Slinky Dink going to the filter. I know that I got about that much room to play with, that much hose I'm going to need, so I probably need, I don't know, 6-inch piece, whatever. The reason why I'm doing that is because these filters, they do plug up, and this filter is actually pretty gnarly at the moment. I got to bring it outside and beat the crap out of it. So you do have to take them off and clean them every once in a while. So by putting a little piece of flex piping in there, it gives me a little bit of room to, you know, lift the flex pipe up, remove the filter, yada, yada, yada. So that's the route I'm going to go with that. Now, as far as securing this thing, my thought is I have this cross member here. Why not utilize it? So what I'm going to do, in theory, I haven't figured it out yet, is mount the other cross member at the right point with a piece of plywood, that when I put the filter in place, I've got a little bit of room here, and I'm going to take little wedges and boop, boop, and on the other side, boop, boop. I figure 4 wedges holding that filter in place will give me enough friction that it won't move. So I'm going to try that. I know some people use bungee cords, and some people finagle some weird hold down system, yada yada. But like I said, if I want to pull the filter out and I want to make it quick, I want to just be able to go pop, 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 pop. Filter comes out, clean it, do whatever you got to do with it, and put it back. Bucket will be mounted to this. that I modified. I left this handle in the middle, didn't think that it would be a big deal, being that it's only catching the remnant crap that falls down. Not really a big airflow issue. The reason why I kept this little rib here is more structural than anything. I don't know how much integrity I would lose with that, but I mean, it's just getting mounted to a piece of plywood. From there, gets screwed onto the bucket, or a bucket gets screwed onto it, rather. But I tend to be a little more anal than I have to be. Cut a couple of holes with my drill, this guy here. I didn't space them perfectly around. The way that everything falls in is that this hole here lines up straight with this one here. But what I did was I was keeping a spacing with the ejector pin locations in relation to this little crossbar here. So I did one here, which if you were to count from here, being that this rib is dead center to here and here, it's 6 count one way and I think a 5 or 7 count the other way, I forget. So when I mark my holes, I have to make sure that I keep this thing registered. No big deal. Alright, so I don't care how ugly that thing is. I just know one thing's for sure, with all the silicone I put in there, that fucker's never going to leak. So I got the bucket mounted to the rest of the frame. Just about to put the air filter in there. I gotta go outside and beat the hell out of the thing before I put it up there, though. It's so freaking nasty. Once my takeoff comes in, I can pipe in my elbows. I can hook up the dust deputy right now. So aside from hooking up the elbow inside of there, she's pretty much done. Okay. So, I cut a mounting plate for the filter. Mounted the bucket up underneath. It's not tight yet. Just want to wait for the silicone to dry a little. The filter I flipped upside down, or I flipped to the right side up actually. Tested out my ductwork angle and whatnot. These are adjustable elbows, so I can final set them when I get the takeoff. The takeoff should just give me enough room that when I put the flex pipe on, I've got enough wiggle to get the filter out whenever I need to clean it. I put these blocks on either side. Put some cabinet shims under it for now, but I may run to the freight and get some toggles that will push down on this. Other than that, the takeoff's the only thing I'm missing. And then we can call this done and I can start piping. So just a temporary solution for piping. Connected the 2 pieces of Harbor Freight flex pipe together with the blast gate because they're only 10-foot sections. Put the Y on to the inlet. Made a little coupler out of some aluminum flashing that I just taped into the hole. A little duct tape. Don't want to waste the aluminum tape I have. That shit's expensive. So once I get my duct pieces for this, I can at least do some preliminary testing with this and then compare it to how well 5-inch ducting works. This is already way more powerful than the old setup. This thing doesn't even take the proper readings at the inlet. So that right there is a testament to how much pressure and CFM loss I was getting from the thine baffle versus the super dust deputy that we won't talk about them. Long story. All right, so today is yet another tomorrow, but I got my takeoff, got my elbows kind of lined up. I got to raise it like so. You can see I got it pretty lined up there. Just gonna double check everything, make sure it's on center, put my takeoff in place. Just gonna cut a hole in the top of this lid, use the seal and a couple of sheet metal screws, and that should be all that needs to be done. Put this all back in, pipe it up with a little section of this here, 5-inch hose. I thought I bought extra hose clamps, but apparently I didn't. For testing, I'll put these back on. For the long run, I'll go out and just get better hose clamps like so. Well, that was a lot harder than it looked. Cut the hole, tried using an old 5-inch hole saw that I had, and I can't even cut through freaking plywood with that damn thing. And I think it was my fault though, because I tried to cut something I wasn't supposed to with it. Masonry. But anyway, I used my jigsaw to get the rest of the hole out. Deburred it real quick with the file. Put the flange in place. Used the 4 holes that were there and made 4 of my own. This thing ain't going anywhere. I don't know. I'm gonna put it together and see what I got here. This seal should be pretty good. It covers the full face of that flange, so even though this is dished in a little bit, because of how tight I've got it, it's got contact all the way around, so I don't think it's gonna leak. I'll check to see if there's any signs of which. I'm gonna clean off the schmutz on there a little bit, but I also got my 5-inch connector that barely fit. I mean, it just barely fit. Plastic being is a flexible material, I was able to get it started and then whack it a few times with a piece of plywood on top of face flange so I didn't bend that. But the fittings that I got, these fittings are from Home Depot, and they are just really, they must be like a 26 gauge or something because they're really stiff. I got a piece of 30 gauge ductwork that, I mean, it's paper compared to these things. And even these are a little flimsier than what I got from Depot. So let's get it all hooked up and see what she does. All right, there she is in all of her glory. I got some cabinet shims to hold the filter down for the moment, but I got some push-pull toggles on order. The 300-pound capacity push-pull toggles. I bought 4 of them, so 4 of them along this 2x4, this 2x4, pushing down here, and then on the opposite side. That should give me adequate downward pressure for the gasket to make that seal. Got the ductwork all taped up and in place. That's not the prettiest thing, but go over it with your thumb a little bit. It's going to smooth it out. It's not too bad. It's a dual purpose kind of thing. It holds the piping exactly where you need it, so if you ever need to move anything, it keeps that all in place. And it also holds it to itself. I don't use any sheet metal screws or anything like that. I could, I just didn't really do it. I got my quick fix on there for right now. This is only temporary because I'm piping the rest of the basement with 5-inch pipe. Just a little duct tape on there, 5-inch on the decoupler, 4-inch out to the flex hose. All right, let's fire it up. Working nice. You can feel the air coming out of the filter. was doing my airflow test the other day, and everything's still a mess. Let's max this out. Yep, still at the 629 feet per minute. That's good. It's actually better than it was reading the other day. Not sure how with the filter on there, but I don't know. So there she is. I am a happy guy.